Hi YouTube, Eddie here, and today we're going to make a child's desk. Actually, we're going to make two desks, one for my son and one for my daughter. They're both in middle school, and as anyone with kids in middle school will tell you, the homework really starts to pile up. And the bottom line is, I want my kitchen table back. So we're going to build them two identical desks for them to do their homework on. The desk we're going to build is one I got from thewoodstore.net. It's called a build-to-suit study desk, which is exactly what I want. It's pretty basic. You have shelving units on both sides here, and you got two drawers here. Nothing fancy, pretty basic, not too technical. These plans actually call for maple plywood. I'm not going to use maple plywood. It's $55 a sheet, and I need 3 of them. I'm going to use sand plywood, S-A-N-D-E plywood. I've never heard of it before, but it's 42 bucks a sheet. I googled sand, and apparently it's a hardwood that comes from Central and South America. I don't know what the results are going to look like, but it looks pretty decent. So we're going to go ahead and cross our fingers for positive results. So the first step in building this desk is we're going to go through the cut list, and we're going to cut all our pieces to length. Okay, we have all our pieces for both desks cut to length. And the rabbets are made, the dados are made, everything should fit together according to our plan. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put them together, we're going to glue them up and put them together. Okay. Okay, so basically the desk it's 2 boxes with a top and some drawers. So what we're going to do now is we're going to glue up one of the boxes, one of the 2 boxes to the desk. And the components, the parts, this is a shelf, right? It's nothing to it. Here are the sides. And on the sides you have a 1/2-inch rabbet to accommodate the back, 1/2-inch piece of plywood. And you have a 3/4-inch rabbet on the top and bottom, and a 3/4-inch dado for the shelf. And then you have the top and bottom here. Again, not much to it except for the 1/2-inch rabbet for the back. And if it doesn't make sense to you now, just stick around. We're going to glue it up and hopefully it'll be a little clearer. Okay. Okay, so as promised, I have the 4 bases. They're all glued up. They're all nice and square. One thing about the sand plywood that I used, it's great. It's strong, it's solid, but when I'm cutting it, it splinters very easily. So that's just something to consider if you're going to be using the sand plywood. Maybe I should have spent the extra $30 for the maple. Probably should have. But like most of you, I'm not made of money, so I was just trying to save $1 or 2. So in any event, again, I've got the 2 desks. Each one is going to have a narrow, deep base and then a wider base. And let me show you what that's going to look like. Okay, this is what the desk is going to look like. I'm going to have 2 drawers underneath here. Also, keep in mind the plywood. I'm going to have edge banding going around all the exposed edges of the plywood, so that you won't be able to see that. And we'll get to that here in just a little bit. But the next step, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start building the drawers. Okay, we just finished putting the dados into this desktop here. The dados are so that we can take this drawer shelf and we're going to glue it into these dados. And these are this is what is going to actually hold the drawers. So we're going to go ahead and get started on gluing up this desk shelf. Pardon me, the drawer shelf, and then after that we're going to start building our drawers. Okay. Okay, it's pretty tight, which is what we like. But seriously, when you cut a dado into a long piece, or any piece for that matter, it weakens that piece. So you want the dado to fit. You want the piece fitting into the dado to be. You want it to be a tight fit, because you need to compensate for the material that you took out. You have to replace it. So you don't want any wiggle room in that dado. So when this dries, it should be as strong as before I took the dado cut. Okay. Okay, so this is a tight fit here. We like it tight because when you make a dado cut and you take out that material, you weaken that piece of wood. So the piece of wood that's going into the dado, you want it tight. You don't want any wiggle room there. You want it nice and tight to replace that material you took out. So if it's nice and tight like this is right here, the desktop should be just as strong as if I didn't take the dados out. Okay? But this is looking pretty good. Again, it's nice and tight. We're gonna let this. We're gonna let the glue dry, and then we're gonna build some drawers. Okay. We're going for the blind dovetail on the drawers here. I'm just using my jig. It's a Porter cable dovetail jig. If you've seen some of my videos, I have a bunch of videos on hand cutting the dovetails or using the table saw on the dovetails. Look, I'm not that proficient at hand cutting it, and the jig, it's just quick, and it looks okay. It looks decent. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and use the jig for the rest of the corners here on this drawer, and we have 4 drawers all together. So we're gonna go ahead and push through that now. Okay, so with the drawers, we have the sides, the front and the back. We have them dovetailed. We also cut a slot in here to accommodate the 1/4" MDF, which is going to make up our bottom. Next step is we're going to go ahead and we're going to glue these together. And seeing how we're using glue, we have the world's greatest arts and crafts person here to help me. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to glue these up and leave them overnight, so tomorrow they should be good to go. Okay, here we go. Okay, sweetheart. Okay, so you just saw me take the clamps off the drawers, and I gotta say, I think they look pretty good. Yeah, I used a jig, and it looks like I used a jig. I'm okay with that. I still think it looks pretty good. I'm gonna have to take some sandpaper and maybe a hand plane to a couple of spots here, but nothing too drastic here. So I'm pretty pleased with that. The next step is we are gonna take some strips of wood, not plywood, solid wood, and we're going to cover the plies on the plywood instead of using edge banding. Every time I do edge banding, it looks awful, so I'm just going to cut strips, 1/4" thick strips of whatever wood I have lying around here. I'm not sure yet whether it's going to be cedar or pine, and we're going to go ahead and cover the plies on the plywood. Okay. Okay, so I went with cedar. I didn't want to go to Home Depot and spend money on some wood, so I just used what was available in my shop here, and in this case it was some cedar. And what I did is I ripped them to the correct width and cut them to length. And what we're going to do, see these plies here, we want to cover them up. And as I mentioned earlier, when I use the edge banding, it just looks awful. I just need more experience doing it until I get it right. So until then, I'm just going to use these pieces of cedar to cover the plies, so it's not as ugly. And I'm going to go ahead and put glue on them, and then put a couple nails in there, and it should hold pretty nicely. Okay, I'm done with putting the stain and the polyurethane on the desk. I had 3 coats of stain and 4 coats of polyurethane. I wanted to have enough polyurethane because these are study desks for my kids. This one's my son's, the other one's going to be for my daughter. And they beat up desks. So I want to make them hard as nails, which I think they are right now. So before I go further, I want to show you guys a glaring error. Many of you may not have even noticed it. Some of you would have though. But I don't call this channel the Woodworking Hack for nothing. Again, most of my mistakes are mistakes I see. But this one is glaring. So if you look, I have about 1.5 inches from the end of the tabletop to the base. On the other side, I have about 1/2 inch. I'm not making any excuses. You know, I make mistakes all the time with woodworking. Usually not this bad though. I suspect I was rushing when we were moving down to Texas. What happened was the shelves, the top, the shelf, and the bottom here, they all fit into a dado, and I slide it on in, right? And the dado is 1/2 inch deep. I didn't account for that. So it's off by 1 inch, you know, 1/2 inch on either side. I didn't account for that, so that's why this side is 1 inch proud than the other side. All right, so that's my mistake. So now we're going to attach the tabletop. And again, I don't have my plans. I forget how they wanted me to attach this. Normally, I would use something called a tabletop fastener. What happened, how these work is you cut a groove, say in the side here, the base, you fit this in the groove, and then you just screw this up to the tabletop. You do it all the way around, and it keeps the tabletop nice and tight and where you want it. The nice thing about this is if you move or you need to just change things up, if you have to take the tabletop off, you can. It's easy. The other alternative, the one I'm going to use, my only alternative at this point, is using glue. I'm going to glue the tabletop to the base on both sides, and I'm going to use 1 inch screws to drill up through here into the tabletop. And I'm using the screws as a clamp. I want to make sure I get lots of pressure between the two surfaces so the glue can do its work. The problem with glue is I'll never get the tabletop off, ever. So, but I have no choice at this point, so we're just going to go with the glue. All right, we'll get started on that now. Okay guys, it's the next day. The glue has cured. It's nice and strong and we're finished. This is going to go into my boys' room and it's going to get a lot of wear and tear. Guys, I'd like to, thank you for your patience. I know I haven't been putting out as many videos as I would like. That was primarily due to the move. I do have a lot of projects on the burner that I want to get through, so I'm hoping there's going to be a lot more consistency with me putting out videos. One of the projects I have is expanding my workshop out back, so that should be pretty exciting, and hopefully we'll get to that before long. So again, as always guys, if you like the video, hit that like button. If you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time. Thanks guys.